of course did a tremendous amount of work to get Joey Johns back on the road after his debilitating injury a couple of seasons ago. So if anyone can give us a few clues about this, it certainly is Scott. And I'd like you then to welcome Scott Dickinson.
I wanted to start this presentation a little bit today, just to talk a little bit about my background and where I've come from. And then move on, obviously, to what is going to constitute an appropriate support structure or staff or team for the group that you guys are working with. I know we've got probably a fairly broad range of coaches in this room, be that from professional organisation or from your junior rep teams or whatever. So what I'm hoping to do is provide probably a best case or perfect world scenario for you, and then given that most of us at some stages have faced different limitations, whether it's financial or administrative or structural types of limitations that are placed upon us, I'm hoping to give you guys maybe the tools or a little bit of information, some alternatives, so that if you don't actually have the best of everything, maybe you can make a couple of adjustments and get the best of what you could possibly achieve out of things. So my background was with the Queensland Academy of Sport. I worked there for 7 years. I did a bit of sports science and I worked as a strength and conditioning coach up there as well. And my experience up there was that the resources that are pumped into the national institutes or state academy of sport systems, whatever you want to call them, are by far superior than what I've seen in most professional sporting clubs around the place. The importance that the government's place on success in the international arena or the national arena is probably one of the highest priority issues for them, because our national sporting teams are a representation of us as a country, and the resources and funding that they pump into them is phenomenal. Things like nutrition, physiotherapy, sports science, and that includes biomechanics, physiology, skill acquisition. All these types of things are they're as good as you can probably get around the place. And the athletes that you're working with in that environment are for the most part amateur. They get very little remuneration. They turn up for training pretty much as if you could probably equate it to a Premier League type of situation where they'll work all day and then turn up for a training session in the afternoon, or they'll have a double training session, one in the morning, they'll go to university or work, and then they'll come back for one in the afternoon. So their level of commitment is enormous, given that they don't actually receive anything back. Whereas, I can speak from my experience at the Knights. When I came on board 15 months ago now, we have a situation where players are getting paid, in some circumstances, an enormous sum of money to play a professional game, but the support around them was certainly nowhere near what you would expect of a professional sporting team. And I'm not sort of talking out of school, because it's been well documented in the papers and that sort of thing, that the Knights were probably one of the under-resourced teams 18 months ago, at least certainly one of the worst resourced teams in the competition. So an example, a couple of examples for you. In the senior squad, we had one person dedicated to the physical preparation of the players, and that person, no disrespect to Billy Peden, because most of you guys probably work with him, fantastic bloke. It was him and 30 to 40 players. He was in charge of the rehab, all the strength work, all the conditioning work, and he was trying to get the job done by himself. And there is no way that anyone can work with that type of numbers and get excellence. Because realistically, that's what we're trying to achieve. This is our national flagship. It's the game, it's the highest level that these guys are going to perform at in this country. I must say high state of origin, and then obviously for this national team. But we're expecting them to perform. They got one person helping them along the way. Probably had 3 coaching staff, and trying to get the job done there was probably an insurmountable type of obstacle. So the transformation for me to come from an environment where there's an enormous amount of support and very little funding going on towards the athletes, as opposed to an arena where there was an enormous amount of financial support going to the players and very little support, was a very difficult sort of challenge. So it's going to come from a number of different avenues, whether that's financial, which pretty much is going to set the tone for what you can actually get out of those last 3 areas. Your administrative personnel. In this presentation, I'm going to deal with primarily the last 2. There's probably a lot more people in this room who are going to present at this conference that can give you a lot better information about the top 2 than I can. But I think, as we all know, that money situation is probably the limiting factor for most of us to try and achieve what you... When I've defined support personnel, I've included your assistant coaches, skills coaches and all that type of thing, because if by definition your head coach is the person that is running the show and trying to link the physical preparation with the skill preparation and all that sort of thing, then by definition everyone else is there to support that guy. So if you look at assistant coaches, skills coaches, IT, video analysts, these are all people that are going to be providing support to your head coach. You may not always have them. There might be some multitasking going on between different arenas, between your physical preparation staff and skill coaches. But this is just an example of some people that you may have within your program. And finally, the coaches and the assistant coaches of all your underpinning programs are going to be of enormous value to you. The reality is, your top coaches are probably going to be the ones that, you're making better money, but you're also working with the cream of the crop. And if we talk about preparing athletes from a young age, realistically, we should be putting our best coaches with the youngest athletes to teach them all the proper things right away. So by the time they get to the top, it's only putting the icing on the cake. The reality is, it's probably the flip side. The guys that are sort of just making it through, the mums and dads are the ones that are working with all your young kids and moving them onto the higher levels. And at the top end, a lot of the time we're trying to correct what's going on and that sort of thing in previous years, and overcome either badly learnt motor patterns or badly learnt skills and all that sort of thing. So you guys here have an opportunity to probably maximise your effectiveness by surrounding yourself with some really good people. From a physical preparation point of view, the performance manager or coordinator is going to be your person who is gluing everything together. They're probably the link between your skills acquisition and all the physical preparation that's going on around, whether that's speed, endurance, strength work and all that sort of thing. This person is probably relying on all the information coming from these other people below them to try and work with the head coach and get the team in the best possible shape in competition. The strength and conditioning coach or coaches, if we're talking about making sure that you get the best result, we all know that one-on-one coaching is going to result in probably better results for the athletes concerned, and it's going to give you guys better feedback on where everyone's at. I'm not saying that you're going to be able to do one-on-one. It's probably a really tall order, but the smaller you can make those groups working with the coaches, the better off you're going to be able to do your job. A rehab coordinator who also doubles as a massage coordinator, so there's some multitasking going on there. You may or may not have a sprint coach, depending on the skills that these other people in the equation have. Obviously, I believe that in a professional club, there needs to be a junior strength and conditioning coordinator, and that person, whilst they might not have the skills of being able to glue everything together or trying to coordinate all that data, this person has to be probably excellent at identifying and picking up technical faults in the gym, teaching guys the right techniques so that they're not going to predispose themselves to injury when they get in there. And by the time they get to me at the top level, they should be able to lift properly, and we should be able to make the maximum gains in strength, speed, power, all those types of things. It's going to be impossible for them to work